Okay, so in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to introduce you to our new sample-based synthesizer for REAKTOR. I'm going to show you how it works, walk you through a few features, and I'm going to use Complete Control and Machine Jam to get really hands-on in the software. But first of all, what I'm going to do is my presentation is going to have a bit of a different focus. So I've seen a lot of tutorials on YouTube that explain how to use form to make like really fat basses and leads and things like that. But what I'm going to do is show you the deep sound design possibilities that it has to create like really twisted textures and interesting soundscapes. Okay, so people have been asking on the forums, what is form? Is it a sampler or is it a synthesizer? And I'm actually going to ask Jonathan, the lead designer for form, that exact question in a few minutes. What I can say is with form, everything starts with a sample, which brings us to our interface, which I hope you can see. So the first thing you see when you open form is a big open invitation to throw a sound in there. And this is something that I really like about this interface. You're not overwhelmed with knobs and features. You know, everyone knows that feeling when you open up a piece of software for the first time and you're completely lost in the interface. This simplicity that form has makes it really inviting, at least to me. Okay, so I actually already chose a sound that I'm going to use for this. It's a super simple sound, just a little marimba that I found, and I'm going to loop it now and just trigger a MIDI clip that I have set up in Ableton. So now we've got this really, really simple C minor marimba loop that's just going on. And what I want to do straight off the bat is play you a sound that really shows what form is capable of. And I'm just going to switch to that sound now. Okay. So as you can hear, our super simple marimba loop is now playing this quite complex sequence, and you hear a lot of really granular like sound shaping going on. And the heart of this is what I'm going to show you right now. It's the curve editor. I'm just going to click on here, and don't get overwhelmed with this tool. It's actually really, really simple. What we're seeing are the motion curves of the sound that I just played for you. And these are actually pretty simple to set up. And I'm going to switch to my really basic marimba sound to show you how to make something similar to this from scratch. Okay, so here we've got my initial sound, and this is the main interface. This is the centerpiece of form. So what we see immediately and kind of jumps out at us in this window is that the waveform, the sample, is being displayed vertically instead of horizontally. And I had not seen that before form. It's actually quite simple. So in this segment, the bottom of the sample, the bottom of the segment is the beginning of the sample, and the top of the segment is the end of the sample. And over here, this little diagonal line that you see going through, this is our motion curve. This is basically what makes form really special. And the motion curves, they decide whether your sample is going to be played forwards or backwards. And that's pretty much it. But they're capable of a lot of different things, and they can really have quite an impact on your sound. Just to show you what that sounds like, now I'm going to choose a different waveform. I'm going to choose a triangle. So this sounds quite different to our diagonal line. And what's happening here is while the curve is rising, the sample is being played forwards, and while it's falling, the sample is being played backwards. And I have a parameter called shape which is just over here. And that basically lets me define how steep these rises and falls are going to be. And I can do some really severe stuff to the timbre. Okay, so right now I'm just using one segment, but I can have as many as I want to create really complex sequences. So now in this example, I've got two, and in the second segment, I'm actually going to show you my favorite parameter on this page, the frequency. So at this point, you're probably already getting a little bit of an idea how I created the initial sample I showed you a couple of minutes ago. I'm just going to show you one more that also uses forms effects. Okay, so what I did here was I have 4 segments, and I panned each segment in a different direction. And that just creates this really nice, wide stereo field. It's super easy to do. And just like before, I can go into a segment, change the curve, and it sounds completely different. So it's really pretty easy to set up, and yeah, you know, remember I just had this super boring marimba sound that I played you at the beginning, and yeah, it's obviously capable of quite a lot of things. Now, we also, if you don't want to do any of that, we have presets. So Jonathan and the REAKTOR team, they made these really nice presets for the curve editor, so you don't have to make any yourself. And you have some really nice and simple ones over here. And then on the second page, you have some really complex waveforms that do a lot with your sound. You're really going to hear a difference. Okay, so that is the heart of form. But form also has some really cool effects and sound shaping tools, and to show you that, I'm actually going to load up another sample. So this sound that I made uses a very different sample. This is the sample I chose. Transformator. Okay, no pun intended. But yeah, so this is a sound that's in the library in form. And I made something very different with this sound. So I'm just going to play that to you now. So I turned it into like this really moving, evolving pad. And just to show you a couple of effects that you can use on this page and show you how powerful they are, I'm just going to try out a couple of things right now. So that was me actually just messing around with formants and the FM modulation, which are here. These are super powerful. I'm having so much fun with this. And yeah, I really recommend to try them out and have a go yourself. But yeah, just to finish off, I'm actually going to go through, just going to show you a couple more sounds that I made using this really silly sample before I invite Jonathan on the stage and have a little chat with him about form. So without further ado, okay. So, you get an idea. Remember, this was just using these three really not so nice same vocal sample that I had before this transformator, and it's just capable of a lot of different sounds. So, but now I'm going to invite Jonathan on stage. But before I do, I'm just going to say, please, if you want to, you can go and try this out. We've got a free demo on the website that you can download. So do that, have a go, and let us know what you think. So yeah, now I'm going to invite Jonathan on the stage, who made this amazing instrument. Okay, so you know it and I know it. People have been asking, what is form? Mm-hmm. Is it a sampler or is it a synthesizer?
Yeah, I've seen this question a lot of times myself, and it keeps a lot of employees ask me the same thing. And I think the best answer to the question is that it really just doesn't matter. What it is a really good instrument, and it allows us to work with samples in a really interesting kind of way. And whether it's a synthesizer or a sampler, I mean, that isn't really the point. But what I can do is I can explain how it does work in the end. So what we do is we use a technique called PSOLA. This is P-S-O-L-A. And you can Google that if you want to, because I don't want to get into all of the details. But what it does, in a really simple nutshell, is it analyzes the sample. It detects all the pitches that are inside of it, and then it uses this pitch information to break the sample up into little snippets. Once we've broken it up into snippets, what we're able to do is we're able to time stretch the sample. We can either go really fast through it, or we can go really slowly. We can jump from one position to another. And it's a little bit different than the kind of time stretching that you're probably used to. A lot of DAWs have time stretching, a lot of samplers do, but when you use that kind of time stretching, it can be very blurry, and it can make your sounds very smeared, and it can kind of ruin all the transients that are inside of them. So this technique is much grittier. It's a little bit closer to a wavetable kind of sound, and it allows you to work in a really precise kind of way, which I think is really useful for this kind of instrument. So early on in the project, when we were demoing different types of technology that we were going to use, when I heard this one, I immediately thought, like, this is something that I can definitely use to make a really cool, really intuitive instrument. Yeah, this is one of the first times that I've actually had any time to explore the instrument. So what I decided to do first was to just start playing with things that we hadn't necessarily designed it for. I wanted to see if I could maybe make something that was like a very basic track and just use this, a very simple chord progression, and then move through that chord progression in different ways using the curve editor. So what I've done here is I've created a sample, and I'll just play it really quickly. And what I've also done, I'm not going to play the entire sample, but I've also appended a couple of drums onto the end of it, so this gives me some more extra stuff to play around with. So what I can do with this sample is I can go into the curve editor, and I can create a nice little house stab. So this is something that I can do with just one segment. And going to move this jam out of the way. And if I just play with the shape of the segment, then I can take the sound and I can make it punchier, like a nice little house stab, or I can bring it a little bit slower so you get kind of a strumming sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually play the entire sequence where I'm moving to different segments, and this actually allows me to remix the sample in real time. Right, so this is pretty interesting. Now the sample is in a different order than it was before. But then I thought, why not try the same thing with drums? So here I also have a loop which is based upon drums. I have a kick drum there, and what I'm able to do is I can slow it down, or I can make it really, really punchy as well. So if I zoom out on this entire loop, what I've actually done is I've put a few kick drums in, I've put a few snare drums in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce back and forth between these different drums and actually make a drum loop. So this is kind of interesting. I mean, it doesn't sound like a typical sampler. It has a bit of a grainy sound, but you are still able to work with drums, and you're still able to mix them together in a way that's really interesting. So I'm just going to mention one more feature about Form. This is called the multi-mode. And what this does is it allows you to take different sounds and it allows you to mix them together at the same time. So what this means is that I can actually take the original chord progression that I made, and I can also take this drum loop, and I should be able to just play them at the same time, just by playing one note. So if I try that, it sounds like this. So that's pretty cool for just one note.
So everything... That's really cool. So everything we're hearing now is coming out of this one instance.
It's one instance, it's one sample, because like I said, I put a couple of drums at the end of the chord sequence, and it's literally just taking two voices from the instrument and playing the chords on the first voice and the drums on the second voice.
Cool. Wow. Okay, so it brings us to our last part. There are some Easter eggs in Reaktor. And the Reaktor team has actually allowed Jonathan to show them to you guys today, or one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually do need to use the MIDI keyboard for this, which doesn't seem to be working.
Yep.
Can you just power?
Loved.
Okay, it is working. It's just on the wrong octave.
Love.
Okay, so I have a sample here. It just says, love the music.
Love the music.
Okay, now this is kind of an annoying sample to me, actually. I don't like it that much, but what's really cool about it is that it does have some nice vowel stuff in it, which sounds like this if I play around with it.
Love the music.
Right, so this is pretty cool, but the issue that we have now is that this playhead is automatically moving through it, and I'm not able to actually stop it or just control it manually. So if you're a power user, maybe what you want to do is you want to be able to turn the knobs on your controller and move that playhead back and forth in the way that I was just showing. We do actually have this feature, but it is hidden in the interface. There were some time constraints, and we couldn't put it in as an officially supported feature yet. But if you want to try it for yourself, you can find it like this. What you need to do is locate this very small X in the bottom left corner of the interface, and then you click on it 4 times really fast. And there, you found a secret feature. So here's a knob that allows you to move back and forth. You can right-click on it, and you can go MIDI learn, and then twist the knob. And there we go. Now I have manual control over it.
Then we have a question from online. Albert asks, is it possible to play chords with the sounds created out of the samples altered on Form?
It's possible to play chords with the sounds created? Of course it is. It's as simple as you loading in your sound and then grabbing a keyboard and then playing a chord. I'm going to use this sound. This is actually really good luck here because this is a perfect example.
Love the music.
So this is you can actually see the pitch curve is rendered here. And what I need to do to play a chord is I need to flatten that. So what I'll do is I'll go to the sound page, I'll flatten the pitch.
Love the music.
and then maybe slow it down a little bit, and I should be able to play a chord. I mean, it might sound a little bit heavy.
Love the music. Love the music.
Okay, so honestly, yeah, I would pick a different sound, but it's still pretty cool.
Okay, thank you. There's another question from the audience. Here in the front, please.
Hi. If you use foam in a DAW, is it possible to apply it as an effect to a track rather than just dropping things into it?
As of right now, just with the product itself, no. But you have to bear in mind that this is a Reaktor product, which means you can actually... Sorry, I'm just going to scare you for a second and go into edit mode. I need to go like this. You can go into the instrument and look at everything that we did. So if you want to take the effects... What's that?
I have no idea what that is.
I know, but there is a user manual, which you could read. And then you would figure out what it was, and you could...
Good start. Actually, there are easier tutorials to basically get you going, but that's the beauty of the instrument, that it's based on Reaktor, and Reaktor is open, so basically you can go into the instrument, you can use any functionality. Maybe, I guess there are some wizards out there that immediately will take the thing and use parts of it and put it maybe in a smaller chunk into the user library. Let's see. So there should be ways. Okay, we have some online question. Sophie is asking, what matters more, the original sample you put in form or the effect which alter the sample?
It really depends upon what you want. You can go like really dry and stick to the sound of the sample that you actually put in, or you can go very, very far away from it. So I think it depends more upon what you want. If there's a specific sound that you're going for, maybe it's easier to start with a sample that sounds similar to what you were thinking of. But if you just want to go for crazy effects, I mean, you can start with anything. So.
Another questions from the audience? Please raise your hands. Otherwise, we have another question from the net. Rafael Dubler asks, I wonder what's the knowledge you must acquire to make a synthesizer like this? Do I need to know about heating systems? Or?
I mean, probably not. But, I mean, again, it comes around to Reaktor. The first time I ever tried making an instrument was in Reaktor, so this is really a great tool for learning how all of this stuff works. Most of the stuff that I know about the way that a sound engine works, I learned from looking at this. After that, I put some time into actually making, I've made a small digital audio workstation before, and throughout all of that, I learned what it is that you need to do to make an instrument, which is really, really cool. You know, but when it comes down to it, you really just have to put a lot of time into it. And I think I'm lucky that really the first instrument that I made here at Native Instruments turned out so good, because it was a really big learning process.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, the audience.